Good morning, everybody. Welcome into First Take. Big day here today. Skip Bayless, Stephen A. is in NYC. Everybody's got their game face on, ready to go. I'm Molly Karam. Good morning, guys.
Good morning. How y'all doing?
How y'all doing?
I'm good, Stephen A.
I'm great. I'm ready to go.
Let's do it.
All right, let's work. So those Thunder will try and close out the Spurs and advance tonight to the team's fourth Western Conference final in the last 6 years. If the Spurs lose tonight, their 67 regular season wins would be tied for the most all-time by a team that didn't make it to at least the conference finals. All right, Stephen A., you know the question. Who wins tonight?
I'm going to go with the Oklahoma City Thunder. I know I picked the Spurs to win this Game 7, and I think if it goes to a Game 7, they'll do it. But I find it very, very hard to believe that they're going to win tonight's game. And it's not just because of their record when faced in an elimination, speaking about Greg Popovich, who's won 2 and lost 10, and, being on the brink of elimination. But it's really about LaMarcus Aldridge. I have to see it to believe it. I know what a big-time talent he is, but this is a pressurized situation. And as you alluded to yesterday, Skip, when you talked about him, you said he's a Spur now, not a Portland Trailblazer. And, he can't act like he did when he was with Portland. Not to say that he was bad there. We know that he's a star in this league. He's big time, but this is some big time pressure right here because of the expectations based on the kind of season that they had. If you're the San Antonio Spurs, you've been universally recognized as the second best team in basketball behind the Golden State Warriors. Well, one would surmise that you have no excuse to lose to anybody but the Golden State Warriors based on what we saw from Oklahoma City this year. Now, clearly that's not the case because you look at Russell Westbrook and the way that he stepped up in Game 5. You look at the combination of him and Kevin Durant. You know what they can do offensively, but I think one of the things that has gone widely unnoticed is the production from Oklahoma City's bench. Whether it's a Dwyane Wade and Enes Kanter and those guys, they're coming off the bench and they're making huge contributions. They outscored the Spurs, I think it was like 20-11 in Game 5 in terms of bench production. What are we hearing or what are we getting from San Antonio's bench? Not much thus far. And so when I look at it from that perspective, it comes down again to Kawhi Leonard being more aggressive, which I can predict, but LaMarcus Aldridge being more efficient, which I can't predict. I simply don't know what he's going to do. I get a sense I know what Kevin Durant is going to do, what Russell Westbrook is going to do, and what other guys with that home crowd spurring them on is going to do. And I look at it from that perspective, and I'm thinking about the fact that OKC has grabbed about 47% of the shots that they have missed, meaning their offensive rebounds. They've been dominant, particularly in the last game or two. And so when you have that kind of advantage, if you're the San Antonio Spurs, as you pointed to yesterday, Skip, the San Antonio Spurs have got to step up and find a way to neutralize OKC. You can't beat an offensive juggernaut like OKC if you're giving them second and third chances on offense because they're dominating the boards with offensive rebounds. They had 15 the last game. That's not going to work. But the question is, with a debilitating Tim Duncan disintegrating before our very eyes with those knees and age and attrition having kicked in emphatically, who can we rely upon to really step in and get it done? I would say a David West. That would help on the boards, no doubt. Your guy Boban, who I'm not sure about, but he is 7'3" and younger, so I got to give him some love. But until I see it, I can't predict that San Antonio is going to go into OKC for a second time in the same series and knock them off. Had they not won Game 3, then that would be different. I could tell you that San Antonio would probably win the night. But the fact that they already beat OKC in Game 3 in OKC, I can't see OKC dropping the ball twice in the same series on their home court. I'm going with the Thunder to win the night and close out the Spurs and advance to the Western Conference Finals.
So just to reiterate what you stated as you opened your soliloquy, you did pick the Spurs in 7 games, correct?
Yes, I did. Yes,
so
I did.
You have now officially flipped on your own pick, right? So now
yes,
you're going Thunder in 6.
I flipped yesterday.
I know. I just want to get this on record. I want to make sure we get it on camera just without any equivocation
last time I
here.
checked,
okay.
Last time I checked, we are on national TV,
right.
and I said it yesterday, so it's been on the record. But go ahead. Go ahead.
As much as I love you like a brother, I have to call you on this because this was the ultimate classic Stephen A. Smith Memorial. on the fence, cover your you-know-what pick, because you picked my Spurs in part to jinx my Spurs, but it's deeper than that. It's more clandestine than that. There's more method to the madness, because what you've done classically is you've kept one foot on each side of the fence, where if my Spurs, who have burned you many, many times on this show with your picks, especially in the postseason, if they burned you again, you could just say, I told you they were going to win. And if Oklahoma City wins, as you firmly believe that they will, there's almost joy creeping into your voice now, you'll get what you want. You will get my old, boring, unathletic Spurs out of your hair, out of your sight, out of your way, out of your life for the rest of the playoffs. You'll get what you wanted from the start, which is Westbrook and Durant against Steph and Clay and company in the conference finals, right? Okay, I get it. The box office for that is much higher than it would be for my old, boring, slow, unathletic Spurs against Steph and company. I get all that. But I've told you from the start, I believe in the character of my Spurs this year, and I'm going to trust that character once again tonight. And I'm sticking with my Spurs in 7 pick in reverse psychology from what you just stated. They did win Game 3 last Friday night in Oklahoma City, and they did so impressively and, to me, convincingly. So I know they are capable of it, and as I detailed to you yesterday, they have been in position to win all 5 games, all 5 of them, and they've managed to win only 2. Is that a bad sign? Glass half full, glass empty. Again, I'm going to take it as glass half full, because I know they can beat this team at its own game. But now I'm getting back to what I brought up to you in passing yesterday. My man Danny Green, who hit 6 out of 9 threes the other night, in a losing effort, I might add, said after the game, maybe it's time for us to play angry. That's exactly what has to happen tonight. For once, my Spurs cannot say, let's just go out there and outthink and out-finesse them. That will not work against this group, led by the angriest player I have ever watched on a nightly basis. Would you agree with this? Russell Westbrook plays angry every night, every dribble of every possession. I mean, I've never seen. He is a force of nature, sometimes unbridled, sometimes a little out of control. He had 8 turnovers the other night. But does anybody play with more intensity and ferocity on a dribble-by-dribble basis than this man does? I've never seen anything like it. So you have to fight that fire with your own fire. And I've seen this team, my team, the Spurs, play with some aggression, some physicality. To start Game 5 at home, you know this and I know this. My Spurs came out lifeless, listless, flat, dead-headed. I was thinking, this is Game 5. Where are you? And to your point and mine yesterday, LaMarcus Aldridge just didn't show up. I don't know if the stage was too big. I don't know what happened. And I don't care, because the rest of the team is good enough, even without him, to play physical basketball and match the Thunder, especially on the backboards. They got punked in their own gym the other night. You know it and I know it. They got annihilated on the backboards. 15 offensive rebounds. 4 went to Russell Westbrook. You tell me, Stephen A. Smith, you are the guru of ESPN basketball. Have you ever seen anything like this kid or this young man on the backboards? He just attacks the glass every possession. Shots go up, and Danny Green and Kawhi are just looking around, and Westbrook flies in and snatches another second chance offensive rebound. You can't win like that. So you have to fight back. You have to be physical. You have to play, dare I say, as you bring up, Boban for 10 or 12 or 15 minutes. You have to coach with some desperation, Coach Popovich. Stephen A., remember the last classic Game 6 that my Spurs won at Thunder? Remember that one in 2014 that got them to the NBA Finals that they won against LeBron? Yep. That was the night. Pop shocked me. Who did he start that night? Remember this? Matt Bonner. I'm not saying you got to start Matt Bonner tonight, but he just did. I don't know what it was, but he started Matt Bonner. Tony Parker was gimpy with a hamstring, couldn't even go in the second half, and it was Corey Joseph and Patty Mills against Russell Westbrook. You kidding me? And they won in overtime. They are capable of winning in overtime if they come out and start shooting the ball like they mean it. You've seen teams shoot it like you mean it. You know, again, make or miss league, hot or cold. Sometimes you just come out and you will the ball in the basket. My team is capable of doing that in a do-or-die game, and I want to see it tonight, and I believe I will see it tonight, where they just shoot every shot like it's going to go in. And again, I told you yesterday, sometimes Durant and Westbrook are just so good, they're too good for my Spurs. Maybe that'll happen tonight, but I don't think so. I'm going to trust that my team comes out and matches intensity and will and skill with the Thunder early on, and I'm going to go with the score in the ballpark of what it was last Friday night. That was 100-96. I'm going to go 98-94. Spurs over Thunder. Spurs home on Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, Game 7. And then we'll have a different conversation.
Well, listen, we'll have a different conversation, but I'm not hedging my bets because Skip Bayless, you know, unlike you, I don't care if I'm wrong. If it happens, it happens. I mean, I'll tell you what I feel at the time that I'm asked the question, and if it is, it is. You know, I don't wear it on my sleeve the way that you do, particularly when it comes to the San Antonio Spurs. I can't hate on you too much for that because when it comes to my Knicks, I'm totally emotional. I'll be the first to admit it. My objectivity goes out the window because I just get disgusted even thinking about them. But with the San Antonio Spurs, I understand how you can be. I mean, it is what it is. Do I want to see Westbrook against Steph Curry?
Yes, you do.
Yes, I do. I'm not apologizing for it. I went all the way to Oakland to see that, even though I was already out there because on the eve of the Super Bowl. But I couldn't wait to see that game. It was everything I waited for, and that's what it comes down to. But I really, really feel like, hey, listen, you can make the predictions based on what you're seeing and what teams are supposed to do. For example, I have no issues whatsoever. You keep bringing up Popovich and some changes, tweaks that may need to be made. Okay, that's fine. Maybe Tim Duncan doesn't need to play 28 minutes. You got me there. You can give some minutes to Boban. You can give some minutes to David West. David West was brought here for moments like this. He has shown. David West has been in conference semifinals before. He may not have been to the finals, but David West has been to the conference finals. He's been to the conference semifinals, obviously. So these moments are not too big for him. I think David West should be put up in there. And the boy is strong and he can bang and nobody's going to push him around. He's not the most athletic dude in the world, but he's got a nice J and he will bang down low. And you need that if you are the San Antonio Spurs on a night like this. They have the capability to beat Oklahoma City. We know this. The problem is that, Skip, you did all of this in the offseason. You re-signed Kawhi Leonard. You went out there and got LaMarcus Aldridge. They're the cornerstones of your franchise, and at least from an offensive perspective, I understand you don't see but so much of a similarity between LaMarcus Aldridge and Tim Duncan in his heyday. Yep. But I'm here to tell you, tell me somebody whose offensive skill set is closer to Tim Duncan in terms of his ability to face the basket or play with his back to the basket and shoot the way that he shoots from mid-range. Think about that. LaMarcus Aldridge is almost a clone of Tim Duncan to that degree. And I look at it from that perspective. If you are going to win, LaMarcus Aldridge has to come through for you. You can't win, particularly a game of this man, unless Danny Green and Patty Mills joins him and they go berserk from three-point range. I can't see how you can beat Oklahoma City if you are San Antonio without LaMarcus Aldridge stepping up and reminding you of the greatness that we all know he has.
Just a quick point of order. To me, LaMarcus is a much better mid-range jump shooter than Tim Duncan ever was. Tim was a great bank shooter from 12 feet maybe, but LaMarcus can go around the array, man. He can shoot them from everywhere, straight on.
I'm just making the point that if you wanted a successor to a Tim Duncan,
I agree.
In terms of your system and what you're looking for from that four spot, you can't get much better than LaMarcus Aldridge.
You cannot.
You can't.
Nope. But the ball
he's got to show up.
That's it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's got to go in the basket. And so this is the thing. Popovich and the plays that they were calling. Skip, we saw LaMarcus Aldridge getting open shots. We saw him being fed. He had open shots, and he was missing. That's not coaching. That comes down to LaMarcus Aldridge being that dude. Tim Duncan was that dude. From the time he walked into this league, he was that dude. LaMarcus Aldridge has to be that for the rest of this series. He has to.
And just for the record, I'm watching tonight's game on a different TV, just for the record.
You are not.
Well, I am.
You are unbelievable to not jinx it.
I'm going to change my luck.
It's a beautiful mind, Stephen A.
Changing my luck
beautiful
tonight.
Mind.
Hey, listen,
This guy is a different deal, America.
Listen, we can't lose either way. Either Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant are going up against Steph Curry and the crew, or we're going to have a Game 7 in San Antonio. I'm fine with that.
You can't lose either way. You can lose badly.
Yeah, hope you don't get punked tonight, Skip.
Yeah, right.
Thunder striking.
Listen. I'm a Knicks fan. I've lost every day of the NBA season. I never win.
LeBron James talked about the definition of MVP. Take a listen.
I think sometimes the word most valuable or best player of the year, you can have different results. You know, that's not taken away from anyone that's ever won the award, but I mean, you look at Steph's numbers. I mean, he averaged 30. I think he led the league in steals. He was 90, 50, 40, and they won 73 wins. I mean, can you have really any debate over that, really, when it comes to that award? But when you talk about most valuable, then you can have a different conversation. So, but take none away from him. He's definitely deserving of that award for sure.
Stephen A., what do you read into what LeBron just said?
Well, I think he has a point. I'm not sure if it was wise for him to say that, particularly fresh off the storyline involving his annoyance with questions about Kawhi Leonard. And now you come up with this at a time when Steph Curry just received the award. There's no doubt that cynics are going to view him as engaging, as drinking a little haterade when it comes to Steph Curry. I didn't absorb it that way. I just think that it's one of those situations where if you're LeBron James, you're looking at the level of talent that this guy is playing with as well. You're looking at the way a Draymond Green is played, the way a Klay Thompson is playing, the capabilities of a Harrison Barnes, et cetera, and you're looking at a Golden State Warriors squad and you're saying, well, how good would they be without him? And then if you're LeBron, you're like, okay, look at how good teams are without me. Where would this team be without me? Where would Miami have been without me? Where would the previous Cleveland squad before I took my talents to South Beach have been before me? And then you think about it from that perspective, and that's what he's bringing up. At the end of the day, LeBron James has to be in any discussion because he's the most complete player in the game. I don't think anybody can deny that. But Skip, what I would say to LeBron and anybody else, even though he did not question Steph Curry and what Steph Curry brings to the table, obviously, I would say this, and I've said this to my listeners on my SiriusXM Mad Dog Sports Radio show. I said, what makes Steph Curry so special and why, even though LeBron is the more complete player, why you have to look at Steph Curry as being the best player in the world right now is because of the collateral impact of his presence. Yes, he averaged 30 on 50% shooting from the field, on 45% shooting from three-point range, on 90% shooting from the free throw line. No matter what you do, you can't stop this boy from shooting the basketball. This young man is special. But because he's so special, as a marksman, that ultimately affects you defensively. I'm talking about the Golden State Warriors. It makes you more impactful defensively because what happens is you have the opposing team who's suddenly tight because they know they can't afford to make any mistakes because if they do, they're going to pay a price once the ball gets in your hand. So suddenly you have to monitor those turnovers. Suddenly you have to rebound the basketball. You can't allow Golden State to get offensive rebounds. Suddenly, passing the ball, distributing the basketball, not slowing the game down, quickening the pace, et cetera, et cetera. All of these things become pivotal because anything that you do wrong will assist in Golden State's offense. That makes you tight when you're on the offensive side of the ball, which makes Golden State's defense more formidable than you would imagine they should be, at least from time to time. I know their defense hasn't been, quote-unquote, great this year, compared to what it was last year. But when it counts most, they're able to amp it up in pivotal moments and get things done because you're a bit tight, because you view them as virtually unstoppable. And the main reason you view them as virtually unstoppable is because of the presence of Steph Curry on the offensive side of the ball. So LeBron will just D you up and have impact in regards to that. Steph Curry has a different kind of impact, but it's just as, if not more lethal, because of how explosive he is offensively. That's why he's more impactful this year than LeBron James, even though if you dissected their games, LeBron's the more complete player. This is how you have to look at it. And LeBron is looking at it that way and saying that's why you have to draw a line and have a dichotomy that exists between the league MVP and the most valuable player to their team, even though others may not look at it that way.
Yep. You brought this up as a possibility, and I'm going to run with it. I did not think this was a good look for LeBron James. I'm not saying he took the low road with these comments, but he didn't exactly stay on the high road that I expected him to stay on in embracing or accepting or validating Steph Curry's first ever unanimous MVP award and back-to-back. And then I sat back last night, Stephen A., and I tried to think, does LeBron have a point here? And to your point, I guess you can make a case. You look at the numbers. The Cavs without LeBron this year went 1-5. And I've harked back to that one game. It was March 29th. Do you remember this one? I think it was a Sunday. James Harden and company were visiting Cleveland. Cleveland was up 20 early in the third quarter. That's just Kyrie and Love, no LeBron. And they couldn't hold the lead. James Harden went nuts in the fourth quarter, and Kyrie and especially Kevin Love did not go nuts in the fourth quarter, and they lost at home. And yet then I look at what Steph just did right before your very eyes in the last two games against Portland. Plus 31 with Steph on the floor were the Golden State Warriors. In the two previous games without him, they were minus 20. So, boy, it's a close call to say that LeBron is more valuable to his team than Steph is to his. Maybe you can make that case. And I do agree with one thing you said. I think LeBron is playing the highest level of basketball he's ever played. He's not the explosive scorer he quite used to be. But overall, all-around game, offense, defense, quarterbacking that offense, he's playing at an extremely high, efficient level. And I keep saying this, there's still no better passer of the basketball, no better distributor than LeBron James. So that total package makes him extremely valuable to his team. I get that. He could make that case. But to in any way come across as diminishing Steph's award or even remotely questioning it or giving it grudging sort of acceptance where he rattled off the stats and kind of shrugged and said, yeah, what are you going to do? You know, like, well, I can't argue with those numbers. It's not the greatest look for him right now.
It may not be the greatest look for him, but I thought I said it earlier, but let me emphasize this as well. You know, he may not be questioning Steph Curry. He may be questioning the voters. And when you look at it, let's go to college basketball, Skip. Once upon a time, there was an MVP. Mm-hmm. And now you have the most outstanding player of the Final Four.
Yep.
And so what I'm saying is that they made that, they changed the acronym for it, per se, because saying the most valuable player sometimes didn't give or shine a light accurately on the person who was most deserving of that title, of that honor. And so they felt that they wanted to go to the most outstanding player. I'm saying to you that once you do something like that, well, why would you do it? Because you have people saying that you've got to draw a line in the sand. You've got to define what it is. And maybe LeBron is saying something along the lines of folks needing to define exactly what the MVP of the league is, who's the most valuable player. You got to remember, the Players Tribune started last year. They went to Las Vegas. They honored Steph Curry was the MVP. But who got the MVP from the players with the Players Tribune Award? Not the Players Tribune,
yeah, James Harden.
But it was James Harden.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying to you, well, why did that happen? You know, clearly Steph Curry was the vote, but you had others who felt like, wait a minute, look at what James Harden did to Houston when they were the #2 seed last year. And so, again, when something like that goes on, it gives you some insight and some indication as to how players think they should be awarded and recognized for certain things that the media may, dare I say, drop the ball on from time to time.
Okay, I got you. Now, to finish this up, allow me to psychoanalyze, just my 2 cents worth of psychoanalyzing what LeBron said. Was he not the chosen one coming out of high school? Was he not for years, we could argue how many years, but I don't know, 8 or 10 years, was he not considered the best player on the planet? And all of a sudden, last year, Steph Curry came out of nowhere and debatably won the MVP over James Harden. Then in the finals, Steph was not great in the first 3 games, started to look better and better as they pulled away from Cleveland, obviously, and won in, what was it, in 6 games? No, 6 games. And my point to you is, Andre Iguodala was the MVP of last year's finals, so it wasn't Steph's world yet. And then maybe in a little bit of a surprise to LeBron, because it was certainly a shock to the rest of us, Steph Curry took it up a whole another level and ran away with MVP. And all of a sudden, for the first time in LeBron's life, 13 years into his NBA career, at age 31, he is no longer regarded as the best player on the planet. Is that fair to say? I'm pretty sure that's widely acclaimed.
That part is fair to say, but the flip side to it, Skip, is that LeBron James has won 4 league MVP honors.
Yep, I got
it. Sandwich between the 4. Derrick Rose got the MVP in the league after LeBron had won 2 straight, and then LeBron, after he won the next 2, Kevin Durant had gotten it. And so, again, you look at Derrick Rose, you look at a Kevin Durant, there were times where people were saying the same things about definitely Kevin Durant, and to a lesser, definitely Kevin Durant, to a lesser degree Derrick Rose. I think if you want to point to that and LeBron potentially having a problem with it, I think the fairest way to go about doing that is highlighting the love fest that appears to be aimed in Steph Curry's direction.
You got it.
Because certainly it was never that for Kevin Durant until after he gave that beautiful speech and dedicated everything to his mom. And it was certainly never that for Derrick Rose. That's the difference. The love affair, the adulation. It's one thing to recognize Steph Curry as a great player and argue that he might be the best player in the world. But this love fest, I mean, if Steph Curry passed gas right now, folks would call it perfume. I mean, it's ridiculous right now. And maybe that's what the kind of things that will kind of turn some of his contemporaries who are the opposition off, particularly if you're anticipating you're going to meet him in the finals. But it makes it interesting.
Okay, but my point is, because of everything you just said, this is the first real threat to the king's domain here, to his reign. Like, to me, there's a little sadness in it because LeBron's feeling like he has to start defending himself to the media that votes for the award, trying to explain to them, re-educate them, wait, maybe there's another way to define this because he feels the crown slipping away.
And here's what I think you're missing. You're right with what you just said, but you're not understanding that it's a beautiful, beautiful thing for us to celebrate. I'm talking about all of us, the media, basketball fans, etc. You know why? Because if LeBron feels a speck of what you just said,
I agree.
Then guess what, Skip? There's a finals coming up. And for all intended purposes, Cleveland is expected to be there. And if Golden State is there, and that's Steph Curry waiting. And that's a collision course that all of us should be looking for. So it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me at all.
It doesn't bother me. But I would warn LeBron, if in any way this comes across to Steph Curry as you are diminishing his achievement here, you don't want to put that chip on that kid's shoulder either, because he is a force of nature. When they're going to come in with
hold on. What's LeBron supposed to be scared? I mean, this is what it's all about.
Better
I
be.
mean, listen, like I told you, everybody, they're not you, Skip. You know, when it comes to your Spurs, if Kevin Durant got kidnapped, you'd smile at night. You know, if he got the flu, you'd be happy. You know, if he tripped over his own ankle and sprained it and couldn't play,
because my guys have
you'd
been
be
hurt
happy.
so much.
Even if they were healthy, you'd want it that way. Hold on.
The injury gods don't like me.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Even if the San Antonio Spurs were young, healthy, and spry, you'd still want something to happen to Russell Westbrook or Kevin Durant. LeBron, us, anybody, to beat a man, you got to beat the man. Steph Curry's the man. He's the champion. He's the two-time league MVP. LeBron should want this. He should want this.
Between the lines, I think LeBron just called out Steph Curry. That's what just happened. That's fine with me. It's good for us.
Listen.
Bring it on.
I don't think that's what he did, but here's the deal. I wouldn't mind the fact that if Steph Curry took it that way and was ready because of it, because that's just going to make the finals that much better, assuming they get there.
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about. This is what you want.
Yeah,
this is what you want.
You can just call up LeBron's people and remind them that Andre Iguodala will not be the MVP of this coming finals. If there's a rematch, it will not be Iguodala who will be MVP.
Okay. You know, who knows? It might be LeBron. Why you might not want to sleep, Skip. You might not want to sleep, Skip.
Hey, now.
I'm just saying, it might not. Listen, I have no doubt that Steph is going to do his thing, but you act like LeBron is chopped liver. I'm sorry. One of the top 2 players in the world for the last 10 years. You act like he's chopped liver.
Yeah, for once he has a lot of help, if my eyes don't deceive me.
For once.
Yeah.
For once.
Okay.
All right, so now
here we go.
So you're willing to admit he didn't have the help before.
I did not admit that.
All right.
I was kidding you about it.
Let's get it on.
Yeah.
Let's get it on. That's what
Let's
it's
just
about.
cancel tonight. We don't need tonight. Let's just get the finals on right now.
We can't wait.
Come on now.
Congrats to Curry on his second MVP. And, of course, LeBron has 4 received votes in all of his 13 seasons. But the real MVP last night, guys, that would be Max Scherzer. To the max, Scherzer strikes out a record 20 Tigers last night in D.C. But is it the most impressive feat we've seen in baseball? We'll debate that next. Stay here.
I think you like me like that. I think you like me like that. Emotional wreck, I told you I can't.
And after basketball, stay tuned for SportsCenter at night. A full recap of Game 6 and highlights from around Major League Baseball. That is later tonight on ESPN. And speaking of baseball, Max Scherzer did something last night that has only been done 4 other times in history. He struck out 20 batters in a 9-inning game in the Nationals' 3-2 win over the Tigers. Scherzer joins Roger Clemens, who did it twice, Kerry Wood, Randy Johnson as the only players to accomplish the feat. Now, to put in perspective how rare this is, there have only been 23 perfect games, Skip. So what's more impressive, a perfect game or a 20 strikeout game in 9 innings?
Obviously, as Molly just pointed out, the numbers would scream to you that the 20 strikeout performance is much harder to pull off because there have been 23 perfect games versus only 5 of these 20 strikeout performances. Stephen A., I'm going into my 12th year on this show. Back in the early days of the show, we used to debate on an almost seemed like daily basis quality of no-hitters, quality of perfect games. What was the degree of difficulty? And I would find lots of them to be laughably overrated. This is what has always amazed and sometimes amused me about the game of baseball. There's so much luck involved in hitting a baseball and getting hits in baseball. Because, as you well know, it's so difficult to make solid contact that it's very difficult close to impossible for a hitter to actually precisely aim where he hits a baseball. So what happens in some no-hitters, lots of guys make solid contact and hit line drives. They don't elevate the ball, but they hit line drives right at an infielder or maybe right at an outfielder. Or maybe one of those fielders ranges far to his left or far to his right and makes a great play to save the no-hitter off a ball that should have been hit in the gap for 2 or 3 bases. So this is where on 20 strikeouts, you take most of the luck out of the game because you took the bat out of the guy's hand. I mean, he just couldn't touch you. And in this case, in Max Scherzer's case, 9 times last night, he had a 3-pitch strikeout. Think about that. 9 times it was good morning, good afternoon, good night. Boom, 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 you're out. I'm out, you know, like, okay, and you feel completely overmatched. So you're taking the luck out of the game on balls that are hit right at somebody and hit hard. But I just happened to be working in Chicago back in 1998, May the 6th, I believe it was, when Kerry Wood had his 20 strikeout game. And now we're into degree of difficulty of 20 strikeout games because this is where we muddy the water. Last night, Max Scherzer, and maybe people lost sight of this, he gave up 2 earned runs. He gave up 6 hits. He gave up 2 home runs, one in the 9th inning that got them in a little bit of trouble, made it 3-2. And Dusty Baker's like, should I leave him? Should I bring in Papelbon? Because obviously the object of the game was to win it, not to equal the record. In fact, he had a chance with 1 batter remaining to, as you know, to actually break the record. But in the Kerry Wood game, which I had the privilege of watching and writing about in Chicago as the columnist for the Tribune, it was ranked, it is now rated as the greatest pitching performance ever. Because in that game, Kerry Wood won 2-0, had 1 batter hit by pitch, and 1 infield hit. And that's it. The Houston Astros were completely overmatched. 20 strikeouts with nothing else to show for it. So that game was much higher rated than this 20 strikeout game. So you even have degrees of difficulty there. But to take nothing away from Max Scherzer, he did it in the fewest pitches ever. 119 pitches to register 20 strikeouts is just phenomenal. But I take these over perfect games or no-hitters of any variety.
So do I. There are plenty of perfect hitters. You know, and it's more simplistic for me than that, Skip. When I think about a perfect game, devoid of the amount of strikeouts that we're talking about here. Let's just say, for example, let's chop it in half. Let's say, for example, somebody threw a perfect game and they struck out 10 batters or 12 batters, Skip. So much assistance is provided by your fielders.
Yep.
You got a defense behind you, and they come to your aid. Don't get me wrong, you deserve the credit because you kept the ball in play. And obviously, they were put in a position where they could come to your rescue, whether it's fielding or catching something in the outfield or whatever the case may be. You could do that. With last night's performance by Scherzer, first of all, he was dealing. He looked big time. Had the fastball working, had the slider working, had the cutter working. I mean, this brother was sensational. It was something special to watch. And when you consider the fact that it was against his former team, rife with individuals who were once his teammate, talking smack to him beforehand about how they were going to light him up, particularly when you consider the fact that he was fresh off of giving up about 4 home runs against Chicago just a few days earlier in his previous performance. All of those things factored into the equation. But the strikeout guys, like you would say, I love that and that way you phrased it. Good morning, good afternoon, good night. 3 and out. That was beautiful. That's a beautiful way to put it. To do that to 9 batters was something special. To give up a homer to Iglesias in the 3rd inning, to come back in the 8th and give up a home run to J.D. Martinez, but to somehow, some way, in between those times, before, in between, after, to still bring the heat for your last pitch to be 98.1 miles per hour. That just shows me that you got some serious heat coming your way, which we all know Scherzer has had. He's not a fluke. These are the kind of things that he's capable of, but you still don't anticipate. You're waiting. Okay, he's capable of the no-hitter. Well, he's got 2 of those. He's capable of a perfect game. He's capable of striking out 15. He's capable. He's much better than the 4.15 ERA that he has right now. He pitched 52 innings this year. He's already struck out 66. This is who he is. But you still find yourself in awe because somehow, some way, there are moments that arrive in each season that he's pitching where there's something even more special than what you saw before. He hasn't come out of nowhere. It's just that the greatness that he puts on display on occasion somehow, some way finds a way to eclipse other great moments he himself has provided. So it's something like that, and I look at it from that perspective. I think about Roger Clemens. I think about him. I think about Kerry Woods, being 20 years of age against the Astros that time and doing what he did. And I just look at this performance, and I think it's spectacular, and it's much better to me than a perfect game. Because even with a perfect game, you know, to me, you know how baseball is. And Scherzer put it best, Skip. He said the word sexy. Just like home runs are sexy, so are strikeouts.
Yep.
Guys bouncing into double plays and flying out to right or left field or center field. I said, yeah, that's nice when you're going for a no-hitter or a perfect game. But when you are literally blowing guys away, that's what you really want to see. There are two things that you love going to a ballpark, to a baseball ballpark to see. You want to see the home runs, and you want to see strikeouts courtesy of high heat. And remember, he just threw fastballs down the pike at them to end the game. I'm not playing any games with you. I'm coming at you. I'm taking you out. That's what greatness is.
So I got to change the subject real quick here with Molly's help. The shot I'm seeing of you in the monitor has this Stephen A. picture over on your shoulder, and it looks like the little voice on your shoulder.
Yeah,
you can't see it right now,
does.
but you in your Alberto commercials, you have the little voice. You're the little voice in somebody's stomach. Now you've got your little, I don't know if it's your devil voice.
That's what I was wondering.
I don't know, but he's right on your shoulder.
Devil voice, because we know you have
angel or devil.
I wasn't aware of that, but
Yeah.
you know, when you're trying to be great,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes roadblocks come the way. You got to know how to dance with the devil sometimes. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know
Gotta
who that
handle
little
it.
guy is over there.
Gotta
He's
handle
looking
it.
up. You know what? I think it's your angel voice because he's looking up into the heavens, right? Yeah.
Yes, new
Okay.
level, new devil,
It works.
Stephen A.
It
like
works.
All right.
It works.
All right.
The Nationals are a half game behind the Mets in the NL East. Skip, good morning, good afternoon, good night. That's what you do in debates, right?
Thank you.
Oh,
Yes.
so why
All
did
right.
Bill...
He wishes. He wishes.
Yeah.
I knew that was coming.
Okay, so why did Bill Belichick say that Tom Brady, if he played another sport, he should play goalie? We'll tell you that after the break. Stay here.
Welcome back to First Take, presented by Bass Pro Shops.
The NBA playoffs continue on Friday when the Raptors and Heat face off in Game 6. Coverage starts with NBA Countdown at 7 Eastern on ESPN.
We are ready to tip it off. Game 5. Steph Curry just received his award. Where do the Warriors go from here? Curry with grab on him, finds Thompson wide open. Steph Curry and got himself free with a dribble and hits the three. Sees it on the brink. Aminu on Curry behind the back. 3-point is up. Oh! Steph Curry! The Warriors advance to the Western Conference Finals.
The Warriors close it out in 5 thanks to Steph Curry cooking up 14 of his 29 points in the fourth quarter. So now Golden State will face the winner of the Thunder Spurs series in the Western Conference Finals. Now, according to our Basketball Power Index, the Warriors would be slightly favored against the Spurs at 52% and heavily favored against the Thunder at 71%. Interesting. Stephen A., what's the better matchup, in your opinion, for Golden State?
Well, I think the better matchup for Golden State would be San Antonio because of age and attrition. You know, they play a slower pace. They're obviously a smarter basketball team. They're very comfortable playing together. But based on what we're seeing in this series against OKC, OKC seems to be the younger team with fresher legs, not concerned with age, attrition at key pivotal positions, etc., whether it be Tony Parker or Tim Duncan, to a lesser degree, Manu Ginobili. But I think with Oklahoma City, you're talking about 2 of the 5 best players in the world. You're talking about a team that can go tit for tat with you. You're talking about a team that can be down 21 minutes and up 5 minutes later because of how explosive OKC can be and how they can come right back at Golden State. They don't play with the precision and the cohesiveness of a San Antonio Spurs all the time. But from a talent perspective, certainly Oklahoma City is Golden State's equal compared to anybody else in the NBA as far as I'm concerned, which is something that I've said all season long. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that either OKC or San Antonio would lose or win to Golden State. We don't know. And if you're Golden State, certainly you don't underestimate either team at all. But in terms of athleticism and what you would have to deal with on a game-in, game-out basis, based on talent along with youthful exuberance, I definitely believe that OKC is more formidable than San Antonio.
So I'm not quite getting you, because you've told me now for several weeks on the show that Oklahoma City would pose a bigger threat to Golden State than San Antonio, which is why you're rooting for Oklahoma City, because it would be not only better box office, you give them a better shot, in part because of the games they played, the one you went to Super Bowl week, the next one at Oklahoma City where Steph hit that 40-foot shot or whatever it was. But then you started off saying San Antonio's the tougher matchup for Golden State. And I don't get, which is it?
No. I said OKC because of their talent, but I'm saying the way that San Antonio plays, the minimal amount of mistakes that they make, and the way they're capable of dictating pace, based on what we saw during the regular season, Skip, that would be a tougher foe for a team like Golden State, who's incredible, but at the same time mercurial in some senses, where when they go up against a disciplined bunch, sometimes it can be problematic for them. Remember, I was in San Antonio when San Antonio beat Golden State, when Steph Curry and Klay Thompson had combined to shoot 2 of 18 from three-point range. And so when you look at it from that perspective, I'm simply pointing to San Antonio's discipline. But at the same time, what we've seen against OKC, it seems like age and, other things have kicked in more so than we thought they would when we were watching San Antonio during the regular season. So not only did I believe that OKC was a better matchup talent-wise, but now based on what I'm seeing from San Antonio in this series, it's even that much more better. And because of it, they would be a tougher foe for Golden State than San Antonio to me.
Okay, I got it. But it's funny that on a day like today, the bandwagon is rolling for OKC. The emotional pendulum has swung back in favor of the Thunder. And the runaway theme of the day is that the Spurs are going to get run over tonight in Game 6 in Oklahoma City. So I'm sure it's jarring to many people, if not most people, to see that our basketball power index still says, hanging in there as I'm hanging in there, by saying, wait a second, timeout America, bandwagon jumpers. 48% chance we give the Spurs to win against Golden State, which is pretty high, 52-48. So they're saying that would be a pretty close series. But the Thunder are only getting 29% love from basketball power index, because they're saying that Golden State would have a 71% chance of beating the team that you would like on their firepower and their younger legs to give Golden State a better run for its money, right?
Yeah, but Skip, nobody's assuming that OKC is going to steamroll over San Antonio.
Well,
you're simply talking about
that.
No, I don't get that impression. Every game, with the exception of the blowout in Game 1, it's been a nail biter. Games 2 through 5. It's just that you surmise that them being on their home court in a Game 6 with the closeout ability that Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook have. When they're in this position, they usually smell blood and they close the deal, including in the past against San Antonio. And I think what you have to stomach, what we're seeing from Tim Duncan, nobody saw this coming. You expected Tim Duncan to just, go through the motions during the regular season, pop to monitor his minutes, and then come playoff time for him to resemble how he looked against the Clippers in the first round last year. Nobody expected to see this. Skip, yesterday I was on my radio show and I read Tim Duncan's stats. The man has not scored in double digits these entire playoffs. First round against Memphis, second round against OKC. He's got 2 two-point games. He's got 1 game where he scored 0. He's got 4 games where he has only registered 1 field goal. This is unreal. No one saw that. No one saw that. And so what you're asking is for us to believe in a closeout game that David West and Boban are going to step in and give you what Tim Duncan can't give you anymore. And that's going to be enough to beat OKC. That's a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow.
Yeah, remember, LaMarcus can fill that void also. He's 6'11" and long, and he's their best rebounder. So don't diminish him. On the board.
Diminish him. I'm relying on him.
I got it.
I'm relying on him.
Okay. Yeah. So, again, BPI is looking at the Spurs as the #1 defensive team in basketball, as a team that rivals Golden State in percentage of three-point shots made, not in numbers, but in just percentage. They're a higher percentage three-point shooting team. And they're looking, I think, at a Greg Popovich who is known for making his playoff series adjustments and gives them some advantage just on sheer coaching brilliance and experience. So that's why, and this is the bottom line to tonight, and I'm going to ask you if you're surprised. My Spurs are a 2.5-point odds maker favorite, a betting favorite tonight at Oklahoma City. Are you surprised by that?
I'm a little surprised because, again,
1.5.
if you're watching...
I'm sorry, they were 2.5 yesterday.
Yeah,
it
now
went
it's
down
1.5. Yeah.
And that doesn't surprise me that people are jumping on that bandwagon to bet it down. Yep, go ahead.
If you watch, LaMarcus Aldridge's talent is unquestioned. What you're questioning about him is the moment, and will he rise to the occasion? In the case of Tim Duncan, the belief is Father Time has kicked down his door. With Tony Parker, there's questions about his health.
Yep.
And how much attrition may play a factor in it. And then, of course, we question the aggression of Kawhi Leonard. We know what he brings defensively, but can he bring it consistently offensively? Is he willing to do that? There are too many questions when you're going up against a Russell Westbrook and a Kevin Durant in this situation, because you damn well know what they're going to do.
Yep.
Hope you packed a black suit. Tomorrow's going to be a sad day.
Sad day?
Yeah, sad day. Yeah.
Okay.
Speaking of the silver in black, Vegas, baby. They tell us what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. And the Raiders could be making a move to America's playground. And one of our favorite NFL owners loves this idea. We'll tell you who that is and if we're on board when we come back. Something you might not know about Patriots head coach Bill Belichick is that he's a huge fan of lacrosse. He actually played in both high school and college. And in the newest episode of Lacrosse Magazine, Overtime with Paul Carcaterra, Belichick was asked if Tom Brady played the game, what position he would play. Take a listen.
Put him in the goal. Put him in the goal? I would have guessed behind at attack, like a Stanwyck or someone.
You can't run. Yeah. I mean, you can't run, you can't dodge, you can't run.
Skip, what do you make of Belichick's comments and that video you just saw?
Yes.
Very athletic.
Allow me to launch on this, Mr. Smith. First of all, allow me to say, on the positive side, of all the interviews I have ever watched Bill Belichick give, this was by far the most open and forthcoming and warm, dare I say, heartwarming that I have ever heard and watched Bill Belichick be. As Molly just pointed out, he loves him some lacrosse. It was his boyhood game that he played. His father coached. He grew up playing, played in high school, played in college. His daughter's the head coach at Holy Cross. It's in his blood. And the love he has for that sport transcends, I think, the love he has for football. But I could not believe the disrespect that suddenly popped out of his mouth when Tom Brady's name was brought up. And I know you can say, oh, he was just kidding. He kids because he loves, blah, blah, blah. And maybe I'm still a little raw from Deflategate and the lack of support that Bill Belichick gave to Tom Brady during Deflategate, especially early on before that Super Bowl when he gave the shrugging press conference. Don't ask me, ask the quarterback. I don't know anything about inflated or deflated footballs. Blah, blah, blah. Now, I'm back to my theme, and I'm going to hit this harder than ever. I believe that Bill Belichick resents the acclaim and the credit that Tom Brady has always gotten and continues to growingly get for the building of the Patriot dynasty. It is clearly, to me, much credit on Brady's side. I've told you before, it's 75-25, Brady over Belichick, and that haunts Bill Belichick. So in a very unguarded moment, when he had let his guard down with the lacrosse interviewer, and they're actually playing lacrosse catch, right-handed, left-handed, right-handed, left-handed. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, he gets asked a question, what position would Brady play? And it pops out of his mouth, we'd have to put him in goal. And the guy says, well, he'd be an attacker. No, he can't run. He can't dodge. Okay, I'm going to give you he can't run. I'll give you that much. I mean, he can run a little bit. But you telling me, Bill Belichick, that your quarterback can't dodge when he ballet dances in the pocket? Ballet dances around pass rushers. Nobody has better feet in the pocket to create that one more second that he needs than Tom Brady, the best quarterback in pro football. And to utter even quote-unquote kidding disrespect is completely out of bounds for the head coach of that team. And if I were Tom Brady, I would just shrug and roll my eyes once more because the coach does not have his back. Trust me on that. And he should.
For the first time on this show, I'm going to call you an old curmudgeon. I can't believe how sensitive you are. You are ridiculous. It's just nauseating to listen to you on this subject. Skip Bayless. Were they not talking about lacrosse, or were they talking about lacrosse or not? Yes or no?
Well, sure they were.
Hold on. They were talking about lacrosse. He asked them about lacrosse. They were out there playing a little lacrosse. That's what they were doing.
So what's your point?
The point is, that's what he was talking about Tom Brady in regards to. He was talking about him. That's right. He can't do this. He can't do that. So that's why I'd have him as goalie as opposed to playing some other position for lacrosse. Obviously, Bill Belichick knows Tom Brady can play football. He certainly knows he can tap dance in the pocket like the late, great Gregory Hines. God rest his soul. He knows that. He knows that. He would. Well, Gregory Hines is one of the greatest tap dancers ever. So obviously, if I'm saying he knows how to tap dance, it's effective. So the point that I'm trying to make to you is it doesn't matter. I'm just talking about the tap dance, and that's all. All I'm saying to you, he was talking about lacrosse. But here's the deal. The reason why this ridiculous subject has come up is because you want to use it as an excuse to get on Bill Belichick, to remind the world how you feel Bill Belichick threw Tom Brady under the bus, to remind the world of how you believe that Tom Brady is the reason for their success and Brady and Belichick has nothing to do with it. To remind the world that Bill Belichick is the one that should thank his lucky stars, because if it weren't for Tom Brady, he wouldn't even be a coach in the NFL. That's what you want to say. That's what you want to say. Okay? Well, listen, Sean Payton doesn't have Tom Brady. He's still coaching in the NFL. Mike McCarthy doesn't have Tom Brady. He's still coaching in the NFL.
Well, he's got the greatest quarterback ever, according to you.
Excuse me, my point is Tom Brady ain't the only great quarterback. Who's to say that Bill Belichick wouldn't have found another one? That's the whole point. So the bottom line is you can slice it any way you want to. All you want to do is use every little thing as an excuse. If Bill Belichick was at a restaurant and he said, I'm going to let Tom Brady pay the tab, you'd have a segment complaining about that too. Why didn't he pay? Why did Tom Brady have to pay the tab? It doesn't stop with you. It doesn't stop.
That's a bad example.
It's a very good example. I'm using it to say you will find every excuse under the sun to complain about anything with Bill Belichick because you believe Tom Brady has been victimized by him. And that's what all of this is about. That's what this is all about. All about. You know he was talking about lacrosse.
Don't look at me. Don't look at me. I don't know anything about the footballs. Ask my quarterback. And you know, and I know, he knows everything about the footballs. I don't know that.
I don't know that.
Yeah, right.
I mean, there's such a thing, Skip. There's such a thing as plausible deniability.
That's
exactly. You can't prove that he knew.
Now
you
don't know.
You don't know. I don't know that Bill Belichick knows that.
Okay.
I don't know that.
How much credit, what percent of credit for the Patriots dynasty do you give Bill Belichick? I want to know.
I've told you before it was 50%. Why are you making me repeat myself?
I thought maybe you'd seen the light by now. You know what? It's probably going up for me closer to 80-20 now, given the great year that Tom Brady had. This is nothing to sneeze at. Trust me on that.
Well, it is. It is something to sneeze at because, Skip Bayless, the bottom line is this. Being a head football coach in the National Football League Everybody talks about how complicated it is, how many multiple responsibilities that you may have to be the leader of an organization, et cetera, and that is clearly Bill Belichick when it comes to the New England Patriots. Tom Brady is fantastic. He's great, but he benefits tremendously by having a guy like Bill Belichick coaching him every day. I respect the hell out of Bill Belichick. You need to as well.
Do you remember what was happening in 2001 with Drew Bledsoe before Bledsoe got hurt?
I remember Bill Parcells struggling too. He's a Hall of Famer.
Bill Belichick on the hot seat for the second time in his career after he got fired in Cleveland.
Sean Payton has struggled. He's also been associated with 6 Super Bowl championships.
Yep.
How about that?
A 6th-round draft choice named Tom Brady, who ran the most awkward-looking 40 in the history of the combine.
Whatever.
Saved the job of Bill Belichick and made him what he is today.
Stop it. Are you really showing this?
What is that? Ah, there it is. There it is. Okay, that's the guy. That's the greatest quarterback ever.
Now he sells cookbooks for $200.
That's correct. He sells cookbooks, and he's the greatest quarterback ever. And he had the greatest 38-year-old year any quarterback's ever had last year. And he is now on a mission to gain revenge for the latest round of Deflategate next year when he will have the greatest 39-year-old year. And again, make his coach even more famous than he is.
May I ask a question real quick? There are plenty of coaches who miss out, who fail to recognize talent, et cetera. Was it not Bill Belichick that made the decision to stick with Tom Brady and say, Drew Bledsoe, you're out of here? Isn't that Bill Belichick who made that call? How is it that we sit up here and we want to rave about the greatness of Tom Brady, but don't rave about the individual who recognized it and had the guts to stick with it? Every Patriot that you find that was a member of those Patriots team would tell you that they all sat up there and talked to Bill Belichick, and they raved themselves not just about Tom Brady, but about Belichick's willingness to recognize it and make the tough decisions. We sit here day after day lamenting one executive decision after another that, dare we say, is highly questionable, but we don't recognize the fact that Tom Brady may have very well not been Tom Brady if it wasn't for what Bill Belichick saw. I don't care who you are or how great of a talent you have. There is something to be said for any executive who recognizes a talent and is willing to appreciate putting them in that position so they can be in a position to shine. That's
look,
what the bottom line.
Just go look it up. Look what started happening as soon as Tom Brady took over the huddle. Watch
His numbers
the results.
weren't fantastic.
Watch what happened.
His numbers weren't fantastic.
They're on the way to the Super Bowl.
His numbers were not fantastic.
It was obvious who the new leader of the team was.
Said they shouldn't have been to the Super Bowl.
He showed backbone that the previous quarterback had never shown. It was obvious. It was the easiest decision Bill Belichick's ever made.
That is not my point. My point is that you, I, and many others literally talk all the time about cash, about cachet, about the pressure organizations have to stick with the money guys, etc. Drew Bledsoe was that guy. And here comes Bill Belichick saying, I'm sorry, you have to sit down because we're going to go with this guy moving forward in our future. At the time that decision was made, everyone recognizes it was not easy. It was tough, but he did it. And that wasn't the only decision that Bill Belichick has made over the years. A bevy of players in and out. Bill Belichick, listen, he's not perfect, but Bill Belichick deserves far more respect and appreciation than you ever give him. Ever give him. You should be ashamed of yourself for coming at him like that.
Assistant coaches on that staff in 2001 who will tell you they feared for their job security. They all thought they were about to get fired. And some kid who ran the most awkward-looking 40 ever came in his second year and saved all their bacon, all their jobs.
Who drafted him?
You know what? I'm not going to give you any credit for that.
Who drafted him?
Because every team, including the Patriots, passed him over for 5 rounds.
After that workout? After that workout in the combine?
That's just like thank you, God.
Who
fell in their lap.
Who took him? Oh, please. Who took
in their lap?
Stop showing
okay.
this.
Whatever. Please.
I think Stephen A. just said, good morning, good afternoon, good night, Skip Bayless.
Thank you.
I think he did.
Yes, he did.
I think he did. Bill Belichick built him. How do you love and hate someone so much on that same team? Only you. All right, when we come back, the Warriors win in 5 games over the Blazers, and the San Francisco Chronicle sports page putting it best, challenge met. But would the Spurs or Thunder provide the bigger challenge to Golden State in the West Finals? We'll discuss. That's next.
On the Hook is brought to you First Take, presented by Bass Pro Shops.
So, the same week, the Las Vegas mayor says she is confident that the Raiders will relocate there. Cowboys owner and general manager Jerry Jones said at a sponsors golf tournament that he wouldn't be opposed to a team moving to Vegas. Quote, it has a flair for entertainment, and it has 2 million people, and they're avid sports fans. The full-time residents, they have a huge visiting contingent that more often than not are fans of some NFL football teams. You add all that together, and it's certainly in a conversation about the future relative to the NFL. One of my favorite quotes here, Jones calls Vegas one of the real crown jewels of communities in the United States. Skip Bayless, do you agree with your owner?
Stephen A. Smith, when it comes to football decision-making, I've occasionally questioned my man Jerry Jones. You have often questioned my man Jerry Jones. When it comes to dollars and cents decision-making, I never question Jerry Jones. When it comes to marketing or business, long-term business vision, I believe Jerry Jones has some genius about him. He has a great eye for what will work in the future. He was a driving force in getting the Rams back to Los Angeles. And now I think he will become a driving force in getting a team to Las Vegas. And when Jerry speaks on these issues, I, for one, listen. I spent a lot of time around Jerry. He was a big part of 3 books that I wrote on the Dallas Cowboys. I spent hundreds of hours around him and interviewing him. And I believe in his business vision. I believe in Las Vegas now as an NFL destination in ways I never did before. Obviously, casino gambling, internet gambling is now widespread in this country. And the stigma of Las Vegas gambling is starting to diminish. Or as Roger Goodell said recently on Mike and Mike, the NFL has softened its stance on gambling as it relates to a team in Las Vegas. Once upon a time, the fear was that players would be susceptible perhaps to game fixing, more susceptible with the mob ties in Vegas back in the day. But you know and I know Las Vegas has changed dramatically. It has gone from Sin City, you know, maybe going back 20, 30, 40 years ago and past, to now, dare I say, it's almost Disney-esque in its family appeal, that there's not so much of this what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. There's more of a family atmosphere now around the casinos that would appeal a little bit more to an NFL situation, an NFL team. My one concern here is what Molly brought up as she set this up. Jerry's talking about 2 million people. I'm not sure that's enough to sustain a passionate fandom for an NFL team. A lot of people would come and go who would be fans of other teams, and they would buy tickets to see their team play in Las Vegas. I'm not sure there's that core of hardcore fans that would make these games an obvious sellout. But if Jerry says so, I'm listening to Jerry.
In this particular instance, I do as well. From a marketing standpoint, obviously, he's not to be questioned. He's hype machine personified. The one thing that he knows how to do is generate a buzz, and he knows how to make money. He doesn't know how to win. Let me take that back. He does know how to win. He just forgot over the last 20 years. But that's a different subject for another day. What I would say to you is this. 2.1 million residents in Las Vegas, over 42 million visitors to Las Vegas each year. And Jerry's right. Folks obviously are sports fans. Would I be concerned about gambling? Certainly, I still would. Would I be concerned about the imagery of the NFL because they're so tightwad about everything now, considering, you know, any bit of negative publicity is something that they believe compromises the shield? I do believe that you're inviting trouble. So you got to ask yourself, is it worth it? And that's where I'm a little bit torn. Would I do it, Skip? Chances are I would. But that's because I'm a chance taker. Whereas in the case of the National Football League, even though they proclaim themselves to be one as well, the fact is that they would be a bit reticent on so many levels because of the potential problems. And you would ask yourself, do you really need to do this? You needed a team in Los Angeles. You needed a team in the second largest market in the United States of America. You don't necessarily need a team in Las Vegas. You don't necessarily need that. So you got to ask yourself, weigh the risk, the reward. Would I do it? Sure, I would, because I think there's money to be made. I think the fact that you got Sin City, which clearly has tremendous buzz, it would help to elevate the profile of the NFL even more so than it already is. Not to mention the fact that with fantasy sports leagues and beyond, the reality is that whether the NFL likes it or not, it's associated with that stuff in ways it never was in the past anyway now. So when you take that into consideration, it's worth the risk. I wouldn't hesitate to do it, but I do understand the reticence on part of some people who may feel that way.
You also have to take into account that no owner was closer to the late, great Al Davis than Jerry Jones was. Al took Jerry under his wing early on, taught him much of what he knows about running an NFL team. And now that Al's son is not only running the Raiders, but wants to move the Raiders to Las Vegas, it's possible Jerry is trying to help the son gain a little momentum to get the team in Las Vegas. So it's not like you would put an expansion team there. He's actually talking about the Raiders moving to Las Vegas, I think.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Yes, he is. He offered to put up $500 million of his own money. There's $150 million they can get from additional investors, and then the rest will come from tourist taxes. But you know, to build a 65,000 seat stadium. So, you know, again, if they're able to pull that off, should it be something that the NFL strongly considers? Absolutely, because there's a few teams in the league that I would question, do they need to have an NFL team?
Yep, I would agree.
Their respective cities. I think that Las Vegas could do a far better job in promoting the NFL brand and bringing quality football to that area, that it would benefit the league far more to have a team in Vegas than it would in at least 3 or 4 cities that already have NFL teams.
No, I got it, but it would hurt my heart to see the Raiders leave Oakland, California.
Yeah, I don't want them to leave Oakland. Oakland should have a football team. Oakland should have a football team.
I think you could argue, too, it could help the sport internationally, potentially, too, because all the international tourists. Interesting. NHL also eyeing Vegas, but that's for an expansion team. Up next, Jordan Spieth, his collapse, one of the most memorable at Augusta in sports history. So could any athlete right the ship after collapsing in that grand fashion on that stage? Find out next.
First Take, presented by Bass Pro Shops.
The NBA playoffs continue on Friday. It's Friday the 13th when the Raptors and Heat face off in Game 6. Coverage starts with NBA Countdown at 7 Eastern. That one is on ESPN.
I've had a lot of close calls that didn't go my way and a lot of close calls that have. This one, you know, happened to be the Masters, which is not ideal, but any major championship, the Open Championship at St. Andrews last year, another tournament I had control of that didn't quite close out. So we got over that one nicely. I'm ready to be back into contention, kind of feel these nerves again, see some good shots, see some make some big putts, feed off the energy of the crowd, and just kind of get back in our normal routine.
All right, so that was Jordan Spieth talking about his collapse at the Masters last month, where he blew a 5-shot lead with 9 holes to go, including a disastrous quadruple bogey on par 3, the 12th hole. Skip, in this media age, can an athlete come back from that type of collapse?
Stephen, I guess they can, but in Jordan Spieth's case, I'm starting to wonder, again, because of the media age we're in. I do want to compliment Jordan on the class and patience with which he has handled the constant interrogation about what happened on the 12th hole at Augusta National. It's probably driving him to distraction here, and I'm afraid he's going to be a little distracted as he tries to return to highly competitive play in the Players this weekend, starting today. In fact, he's playing now. But the point is, I got to tell you, if I can just keep it in the golf realm for you, I have never, maybe I'm missing something in my memory, but Stephen A., I can't remember a great player, an all-time great golfer, a Tiger, a Nicklaus, a Hogan, a Palmer. I could go on and on. I can't remember those great majors winners suffering a single hole collapse while in control of a major championship the way Jordan Spieth suddenly and shockingly did. And again, I got to remind everybody, last year, if we can go back a golf year, Jordan Spieth was Tiger-esque. He won the Masters, and he won the U.S. Open, and he had a 5-foot putt for par that he missed on 17 on the final round of the British, or he just might have won that tournament. And then he finished second in the PGA to Jason Day. That's Tiger-esque. But what happened on 12 was not. Now, we've seen the Greg Normans of the world, 96. It was slow death, where slowly but surely starting on number 1, he started losing his lead to Nick Faldo. It just happened. By the 9th hole, you just knew it was over for Greg Norman. Not like this. This is, as Molly pointed out, 5 up. This is Jordan Spieth at a course that you'd think he just owned almost the way Tiger did, because he was in contention, you remember, 2 years ago with Bubba Watson in the final twosome. And he's 5 up, and he goes bogey 10, bogey 11, and then takes a quadruple bogey out of nowhere. It's so bad, it's so shocking, it's so hard to recover from when you keep getting asked about it. No sport more than golf creates psychological demons, and they are going to be lurking in his subconscious from here on. And it probably won't be at the Players, but as he continues to play major championships, trust me, those demons are going to start barking in the back of his head as he reaches some contention point or has a lead going into the back 9 of whatever major it is. It's going to weigh on him because, in part, the media is never going to let it go away unless he starts winning another 6, 7, 8 majors and obliterates the memory, and I'm not sure he can.
I'm not sure he can either, Skip. See, I think Jordan Spieth has the talent to overcome it. The fact that he birdied on the 13th and the 15th hole
That's a good point.
after the quadruple bogey on the 12th shows me, and then not only that, for the most part, he played well. He was right behind Danny Willett. I mean, on the 16th hole, he was right there. I mean, he was still back in contention, coming back. He just couldn't close the gap. Because, obviously the quadruple bogey on 12 was a devastating blow. If it wasn't for that, he would have won the tournament as far as I'm concerned. But he still came back and birdied 2 of the next 3 holes, which tells me something. The problem is this. Here's where the trepidation kicks in. If it was just about his talent, fine. If it was just about his talent overcoming those psychological demons, fine. I believe in Jordan Spieth. The problem I think Jordan Spieth is going to have is that this moment will stay with him forever until he overcomes it. And it's not enough for him to just win a tournament in cruise control, running away. When pressure mounts is when folks are going to be in his face. And I don't know if he's going to know how to deal with that. That's the challenge here. Because if he doesn't know how to march on through that noise that ultimately gets in his face and his ears, he can't win. You got to be able to know how to defeat that, not by running away from it, but by actually being confronted by it, but being numb to it. It doesn't affect you, and you still go on and do it. We don't know if Jordan Spieth has that capability yet. It's all nice, good, and dandy. You applauded him for the way he handles stuff. Well, first of all, it's protocol, it's tradition. You have to be the one to slide that green jacket on, okay? So I'm not giving him any credit for that. What was he supposed to do, go home and refuse to do so? No, that's not proper etiquette in the sport of golf. We know this. The post-tournament interview that, they didn't really ask him anything, but then he goes away for a few weeks. Like, he classified it like an off season. He was gone for 4 weeks. Well, I would like to think you'll wait that long. Once you come back and you get interviewed about it, of course you're prepared to answer questions. But you would think that it's going to end at some point. But it's not going to end. And it's going to be written about. It's going to be talked about. It's going to be debated. It's going to be speculated upon. Can he deal with that? Because like you said, no sport creates psychological demons more effectively than golf. And that's what he's going to have to deal with. I have no doubt that his talent can overcome it. His own personal poise, as it pertains strictly to playing golf, can overcome it. But he ain't never been in this position where he's got to be bombarded with the questions and he's got to absorb all the inquiry. And I don't know if he's built to deal with that element.
I'm not either.
I really don't.
And I remind you, Jordan, in his recent past, has fallen victim to responding on Twitter to his critics, being a little too thin-skinned. And I don't know off camera how hard he's taking this. He's saying the right things on camera. And again, he's keeping that stiff upper lip, and I admire that. But it's the internet age we live in. Unless you can tune it all out completely, it's going to stay with you because people won't let it go until you obliterate the memory of it with some great triumph, overcoming it. And it's going to be tough on this. And he's still a kid, but it's going to be tough on him.
He's even through 10.
Let's hope they remember he's a kid.
Yep.
Let's hope they remember he's a kid.
Yep.
Yep. And side note, Spieth is even through 10 holes at the Players. Moving on, one Colts coach is expecting big things from his star quarterback this season, but will it be good or bad luck for Indy in 2016? That is the discussion next.
You're watching First Take, presented by Bass Pro Shops.
2015 was a season to forget for Andrew Luck, who finished with 15 touchdowns and 12 interceptions and missed the final 9 games due to injury. This year, new Colts quarterbacks coach Brian Schottenheimer isn't trying to adjust how Luck plays the game, though. Quote, "We're not going to change the way Andrew plays. Andrew's going to play the game. You've got to let Andrew play. I think the turnovers will happen from time to time. There are a few decisions, of course, from last year he looks at and is like, man, I shouldn't have done that. But I think that's all part of the process. I think he grew a lot last year just by actually being able to sit back and watch a little bit." He went on to say how Luck has an incredible football IQ, which we've always heard. Stephen A., what do you make of Schottenheimer's comments on Luck?
Well, Skip would tell you this. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a bigger fan of Andrew Luck than me. I believe in this guy. I think he's an incredibly nice guy, first of all. Secondly, he's smart as hell. And I believe in his talent. He should have been a #1 overall pick when he was. As much as I respect RG3 and I got love for him, I've always been an Andrew Luck guy, and I'm going to stay that way. I do believe this guy is a future Hall of Famer. I do believe that this guy has a couple of Super Bowl titles in his future. I do believe that this guy has the potential to be as great as the great ones, whether it's from John Elway and Peyton Manning to Tom Brady to an Aaron Rodgers or Drew Brees. I believe someday Andrew Luck is going to be mentioned in the same breath as all of those guys. I just believe it. I always have and I always will. I think that when you look at him right now, last year was clearly his worst. He threw 12 interceptions in 7 starts, didn't slide, was constantly putting himself in harm's way physically, rib, shoulder injury, the list goes on and on. But I think that he has the intestinal fortitude, the willingness to come back, the pride, the personal pride that it takes to be great. And the only question mark that I have is what's going on in Indy. I'm a big Pagano fan. I like Pagano genuinely. I root for him. I hope that he is successful. I think he was lucky to keep his job because I think him and Grigson didn't have the greatest relationship, but I fault Grigson more for that than Pagano. I don't like the fact that Pep Hamilton was gone, but if Pagano is more of a Rob Chudzinski guy who's now his offensive coordinator, there's nothing wrong with that. And then you bring in Brian Schottenheimer. And on one hand, Skip, I like Schottenheimer because I think the Jets missed him when he was gone. I don't think he was appreciated nearly as much in New York as he should have been. But when folks brag about a resume that includes him coaching Grayson Allen, Austin Davis, Sean Hill, Sam Bradford, Kellen Clemens, and Mark Sanchez, I'm like, with all due respect, Mr. Schottenheimer, what the hell is there to brag about? I mean, maybe we saw some development and improvement, but none of those guys knock your socks off. None of those guys make you say, wow, I got to have Brian Schottenheimer because look what they did. It may be their fault that they're not getting the tutelage or grasping the tutelage that they should have. but I don't know about Schottenheimer right now. But Andrew Luck, I just believe in him. And I believe that he will be fine because last year was a necessary evil to have occurred, meaning his play. And I think he will make amends for it.
I believe Andrew Luck has immense talent, immense potential that has not been realized. And I found Brian Schottenheimer's comments to be contradictory because, on the one hand, as Molly pointed out, genius football IQ, we've heard that before. And on the other hand, Brian is saying, but you have to question some of the decisions he made as a quarterback last year, obviously. Well, he led the NFL in turnovers per game in the, 7 games he played last year. Not great. As you know, and I keep pointing out because I have to, because the facts are the facts, in 2 of his 4 NFL seasons, he finished second in total turnovers. Second in total turnovers in the National Football League. Once to Mark Sanchez, once to Jay Cutler. Not a great look for a guy who has the potential to be a big Super Bowl quarterback. We get all that as #1 overall pick. So now Brian Schottenheimer's saying, I've got to let Luck be Luck, let him be himself. Yet you know and I know that not only has he held the ball too long on occasions trying to make the play to win the game, but he'll take off and run and try to run over people all too often. He has taken a beating. He took a terrible beating last year that cost him 9 games. I hope he's recovered for his sake because it was a hellacious beating he took last year, and it was cumulative over the first 3 and then going into last year's 4th year. So what does Schottenheimer do? Is he going to say, go ahead and be yourself and take off and hold the ball too long and take hits that you shouldn't take? I don't see a, you need a new way. You need to mature, grow up, and say, I can't do that anymore. I got to stay upright. As big and strong and raw-boned as I am, I can't take that beating anymore. So I'm not sure. It felt like Brian's just kind of going with the new flow. He's bounced around the league, and he's being a little too deferential maybe to Andrew Luck. So in the end, some things are going to have to change this year for Andrew Luck, or he's going to suffer the same fate he did last year.
Well, you got a new offensive coordinator. You got a new quarterbacks coach. Guys like Fleener are gone. You're going to have new targets. I think there's a lot of changes that are taking place around Andrew Luck. We just have to hope that it's to his benefit and not basically servicing the ego of Gregson, who some argued was taking place in the past.
And most important, of course, is that he stays healthy. Up next, a little playoff talk. Are Skip Spurs done? One thing we know for sure, he'll be watching it from a different TV. The guys will make their picks. That is next. And OKC in Game 6 of the Western Conference semifinals at the Thunderdome. Our coverage begins with NBA Countdown at 7:30 Eastern on ESPN. Stephen Anthony, can I get a final score from you, please? Can you hear me?
I don't hear.
Can't hear?
OKC.
Okay, Skip, you want to go?
Can't hear anything?
There you go. I got you now. I hear you now.
Okay.
What's your
Sorry.
score?
Sports Center was in my ear.
What's your score?
Sports Center.
OKC